Okay, so today we're doing lesson 3 and lesson 4. We're going to be talking about recipes and mixing colors. Ratios are something that interests me because it deals with recipes. And to me, it deals with real life things. We'll be going over that today. It says, let's explore how ratios affect how a recipe tastes. So you are just listening and watching. So it says, a recipe for fizzy juice says mix 5 cups of cranberry juice and 2 cups of soda water. To double this recipe, we would use 10 cups of cranberry juice and 4 cups of soda water. So this cranberry juice would double, and so would this water. So basically what's happening is this 5 is really being multiplied by 2. And this 2 is really being multiplied by 2. And we will always multiply it by 2 when we're doubling it. Now, the next part says to triple the recipe, we would get 15 cups of cranberry and 6 cups of soda. So when we are tripling a recipe, we would multiply that recipe by 3. So now you see this diagram. Okay, so this diagram, this middle one here, that is what happens for one batch. Okay, that would be one part of this juice. If I wanted to double it or make 2 parts of this juice, that would be my diagram that you see there. There would be 2 parts to it. And then if I were to triple my diagram, that's going to be this one on the outer side, and that would be 3 times the amount that I started with. So how this relates to everything that we've been doing is this word here, equivalent. So it says, we say that the ratio 5 to 2, 10 to 4, and 15 to 6 are equivalent. So it says, even though the amounts of each ingredient within a single, double, or triple batch are not the same, they would make a taste of juice that tastes the same. So if you were doing this just for you and maybe your little brother or sister, you guys would probably make a batch of 1. Let's say that you were having a party or something like that. You would probably do a batch of 3. But what happens is, whether you do a batch for 1 or a batch for 3, you will have the exact same taste. That juice will taste the same because you're putting the same amount every time. Okay, so that's important to know as we move forward. So the first one is this powdered drink. You're on page 17 of your book. All right. So now it says, here are diagrams representing 3 mixtures of a powdered drink and water. So now your key, this is important to know, this key here. So the white is a tablespoon of the mix, and the blue is a cup of water. So it says, how would the taste, that's important, how would the taste of mixture A compared to the taste of B? And what you're going to write in your book under number 1 is, well, they would taste the same. This and this are exactly the same. So they would just taste the same. All right. So we were on 17. Now you're on page 18 and we're doing number 2. So it says, use the diagrams to complete the statement. So it says mixture B, that's here, uses 1 cup of water and 4 teaspoons of drink mix. So you're going to write a 1 and a 4. It says the ratio of cups of water to teaspoons of drink mix would be 1 to 4. Now that 1 to 4 is what we talked about last class. Notice how the water is first and the drink mix is second. That is how our numbers work on the right. So now we're looking at number 2, letter B. It says, well, mixture C, so that's that one right there. Mixture C uses 2 cups of water, so you'll write a 2 there, and 8 teaspoons of the drink mix. So you'll write 2 and 8. It says the ratio of cups of water to teaspoons of drink mix C, is 2 to 8. So we basically doubled the recipe. Notice how this 1 multiplied to 2 and this 4 multiplied to 2, and that's how we got 2 to 8. So now we're talking about cookies. So you are on page 19 in your book. And it says, what does it mean to double a recipe? So you would really do this if you were cooking cookies. Okay, so page 19, I'm on number 1. So it says a recipe for 1 batch of cookies calls for 5 cups of flour and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So what I always like to do is I always like to write the ratio, 5 to 2. Okay, so that's what I'm dealing with for 1 batch, 5 to 2. So now for number 1, it says draw a diagram that shows the amount of flour and vanilla needed for 2 batches. Okay, so you're going to copy what you see, the shapes. So my little key was here. I made flour gray. I made vanilla green. And this is 1 batch. And this is my second batch. So 1 batch should have 5 flour and 2 vanillas. 2 batches will have 10 flour and 4 vanillas. So if you take the ratio of 5 to 2, really what I'm doing is I'm multiplying this to 2 and this to 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 2 is 4. Sorry, those should be dots. So your ratio, if it were to be doubled, would be 10 to 4 because it says 2 batches. So now you're on the same page. We're on number 2 now. So it says, how many batches can you make with 15 cups of flour and 6 teaspoons of vanilla? So that answer would be 3. So what I did here is I took this 1 batch and I did 5 times 3, and that gave me 15. But whatever I do to one side, I need to do the same thing to the other side. So 2 times 3 is 6. So that's how they got what they got. So for number 2, you're just writing 3 batches. All right, now we're on number 3, same page. So it says, how much flour and vanilla would you need for 5 batches? Okay, so here we go. This is our original recipe, 5 to 2. So we would do 5 times 5, and we would get 25. And then we would do 2 times 5. And that's how they got 10. So your answer is going to be right here. So please write that. 25 cups of flour and 10 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, and then this is the end of this one. So number 4, whether the ratio of cups of flour to teaspoons of vanilla is 5 to 2, 10 to 4, 15 to 6. The recipes would make cookies that taste the same. We call these equivalent ratios. So find another ratio of cups of flour to teaspoons of vanilla that are equal to those. So remember that our original was 5 to 2. So what I did is I multiplied them both by 4. So I did 5 times 4. And that's how I got the 20 right there. And then I did 2 times 4. And that's how I got the 8 right there. So you're going to be writing 20 to 8. That is what you're writing under A. And then B, how many batches can you make using my new ratio? And your answer is right here, 4. 4 batches. Whatever number you multiply by, that is the amount of batches. All right. So now for the rest of this, you are just listening. We're going to talk about mixing colors. So you would do this if you were in an art class. This is lesson 4. So it says, let's see what color mixing has to do with ratios. So it says, when mixing colors, doubling or tripling the amount of each color will create the same shade. So the same way the recipe would taste the same, the shade would be the same if you're mixing colors. It says, in fact, you can always multiply the amount of each color by the same number. So that's what I've been doing this entire time to create a different amount of the same mix color. So here's an example. It says a batch of dark orange paint uses 4 milliliters of red and 2 milliliters of yellow. To make 2 batches of the orange paint, we would mix 8 and 4. So notice how this is 4 times 2. And that's how they got the 8 right there. And then this is 2 times 2. And that's how they got the 4 right there. So then for 3 batches, I'm sure you're already catching on. So for 3 batches, you would do this 4 by 3. That's how they got the 12 right there. And then you would do this 2 by 3 to get 6. And that's how they got the 6 there. So if we're doubling, we multiply by 2. If we are tripling, we multiply by 3. And remember to multiply each one by that number. All right, and then now you get to see a picture. So here's a diagram that represents 1, 2, and 3 batches. Okay, so here's your 1 batch. This is 2 batches. And then this whole thing is 3 batches. So it says, we say that the ratios 4 to 2, 8 to 4, and 12 to 6 are equivalent because they describe the same color mixture in different numbers of batches, and they would make the same shade. Okay, so now I just kind of added a separate visual for you to see. So I made my own problem. This is not in your book. It says a batch of green paint uses 5 milliliters of blue water and 15 milliliters of yellow. So I wrote my ratio 5 to 15. And here is a diagram of what that would be. Notice the blue has 5 and the yellow has the 15. So that would be my picture. Okay, so now it says a batch of green paint. So we already read all that. I'm sorry. So I'm more focusing here. What would 2 batches be? So remember I taught you, here's your original for 1 batch. So multiply each of those by 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 15 times 2 is 30. So your new ratio would be 10 to 30. Okay? All right. So now what you're going to do is you're going to try to think in your brain, well, what would be 3 batches? Okay, so you're going to first do 5 times 3, because remember, this is your original batch, and I would get 15. And then I'm going to take that 15, this 15, and I'm going to multiply it to 3 as well, and I get 45. So another equivalent ratio to 5 to 15 would be 15 to 45. Okay, so you're going to join the me and we're going to practice this.